60,000 people on a hill in Surrey. Derby Day, Epsom Downs, the one afternoon a year when duchesses and dock workers standing on the same grass, watching the same horses. Yet, between the fairground on the hill and the enclosure at the finish line, there were 50 yards of rope, 4 policemen, and a dress code. And the dress code did more work than the policeman ever could. And between all these noblemen I stood, a thug from Birmingham. I came to Epsom that day to take an entire business, every betting license, every pitch on that course, off the man who ran London's racetracks. A takeover in one afternoon of a market I had no right to be standing in. Yet, I blended it right in. I didn't cut the rope. I dressed to walk past it. Walking into a room where the money is older than your family name, where everyone seems to know a rule nobody wrote down, where you talk well, you know your numbers, you're the best prepared man in there, and somehow the decision was made about you before you opened your mouth. This is the power of a well-crafted suit. Most men think clothes are about being admired. They're not. Clothes are a tool for doing business. Today I'll show you how to dress so rich men take you seriously. 5 lessons, 5 dimensions of power. How I speak, how I carry my body, how I dress, how I move people without them noticing, and how I command the one man who matters most, myself. I am Thomas Shelby, and this is my masterclass. Six weeks before the Derby, I went to a tailor in London and did something that would have got me laughed out of every pub in Small Heath. I spent more on one coat than my father earned in a year. Grey morning coat, striped trousers, a grey topper, 3 fittings, and on the third one, the tailor was still pinching half an inch out of the sleeve while I stood there like a man being measured for a coffin. My brother asked what the hell I thought I was buying. I told him the right to be in the room. That coat was a mere business expense. In fact, it was the opening bid on the deal. And I've watched men lose fortunes because they showed up to a £100,000 deal dressed like a £500 man. Researchers have even put numbers on this. They put men into a negotiation, same task, same stakes. Half of them in a proper business suit, half in tracksuits and sandals. Neither side knew the study was about clothes. The men in suits walked away with significantly more profit. They pushed harder, conceded less, and the men across the table from them, men in ordinary clothes, didn't just perceive less power, their bodies responded to it. Heart rhythm, stress response, all of it shifting to match the man in the suit. Nobody in that room could have told you why. They just paid more. And it doesn't take a tracksuit to lose it. Another team showed people photographs of the same man in 2 suits. Minor details mattered. The cut of the shoulder, the line of the lapel. They showed the pictures for 5 seconds, face cropped out. 5 seconds of fabric, and the man in the better cut suit was rated more confident, more successful, higher earning. So understand what you're actually doing when you get dressed for something that matters. You aren't choosing an outfit, you're setting the price the room starts negotiating from. Dress for the room you're walking into, never the one you came from. Derby morning, a hotel room, grey light, and me in front of a mirror with a collar stud I couldn't get in with steady hands. I'd been awake most of the night. I had 4 men on that hill relying on me, a plan with about 6 ways to end in a grave, and a rope of nerves in my chest that I'd have paid good money to cut out. Then the coat went on, and something in my head went quiet. Now, I'm not going to sell you magic. The coat didn't make me braver, but it did something stranger and something I've relied on ever since. Psychologists have tested this properly. Put people in formal clothing and their thinking changes shape. It goes wider, more abstract, less caught in the detail directly in front of them, more able to hold the whole picture. And when they traced why, what was carrying the effect was simple. The clothes made people feel more powerful, and the feeling changed their thinking. I felt exactly that in front of that mirror. The night before, I'd been drowning in details. Which man stands where, what time the police move. The coat came on, and the details became one clean shape. I am here to take a business, and the rest is just noise. There's a warning in this too, and it cuts both ways. If good clothes lift the way you think, then the clothes you slump into do the opposite. And here's the thing about days that matter. You almost never get told in advance which one it is. So stop dressing for how you feel that morning. Dress for the man you want to become. The feeling follows the fabric more often than the fabric follows the feeling. A suit sends a message, and that message affects the inside first. By 11 that morning, I was inside the enclosure. Champagne, cigars, horses, and several hundred men who had never once in their lives had to think about how they looked. They tell you never to judge a book by its cover. Every man in that enclosure was doing exactly that. Nobody in there had seen my ledger. Nobody knew what I owned, what I'd built, or who owed me money. A room can't read any of that, so the room reads the cover instead. And that is not a gangster's superstition. Researchers once photographed people's most worn shoes. Just the shoes, no face, no name. Then they showed those photographs to strangers. From a pair of shoes on a white background, strangers judged the owner's income, his age, even something as private as how anxious he was in close relationships. And they were accurate at a rate that ought to frighten you. That is your cover. One detail, and a stranger writes your biography. Now, here's the part of this that should give you hope. You can't do much about your face, but researchers who took apart why good-looking people earn more found that a large share of it isn't looks at all. It's grooming, the haircut, the shave, the clean collar, the pressed shirt. For men, roughly half of that advantage comes from the part you can fix with 20 minutes and a mirror. Half of it is upkeep, and almost nobody does the upkeep. So stop pouring money into the book while neglecting the cover. Audit the small things, the heels of your shoes, the state of your watch strap, your collar, your nails, the bag you carry into the meeting. An honest suit with immaculate details beats an expensive suit with neglect. They'll judge the cover whether you like it or not, so write a better one. Now, I dressed like them all day. Coat, collar, topper, the lot. But in my inside pocket, folded flat against my ribs, was my cap. 6 ounces of Birmingham wool with a razor stitched into the peak. I'd like to tell you I brought it for the blades. That's not why. I brought it because it made me unique. Now there's a real principle underneath this, and it's more useful than the sentiment. Researchers have looked at what happens when a man breaks a dress rule in a room that has one. Trainers in a boardroom. No tie at black tie. And the findings surprised them. In rooms where everyone knows the standard, the man who deviates is often read as higher status, not lower. The logic the room runs, without ever saying it out loud, is this: he can afford not to comply. Nobody makes him. But read the second half of that finding, because that's where men destroy themselves. The effect vanishes when the room can't tell the deviation was deliberate. It vanishes when the audience doesn't know the rules well enough to see one being broken. Break the code on purpose, in front of people who know the code, and you look untouchable. Break it by accident, and you don't look like a man with authority. You look like a man who couldn't afford the right hat. So earn the code first. Wear it well enough that the room can see you know it cold. Then keep one thing that is unmistakably yours. One deviation, chosen, repeated, never explained. Enough that men start describing you by it when you're not in the room. I wore their uniform all the way to the finish line, and the moment I walked back out through that gate, the topper came off and the cap went on. Let them see you know their rules. Then let them wonder why you don't obey them all. And now for the grand finale. By mid-afternoon, Epsom Downs was crawling with men looking for me. The police had my description. So did the men of the London racetrack king. They walked past me all day. One of them asked me for a light. I gave him one. The highest function of good clothing isn't admiration, it's clearance. There's a body of research on this that reads like a con man's manual. Across a run of experiments, people wearing visible signals of status got more compliance from strangers, more cooperation, better treatment in job interviews, better outcomes when they asked for something. Same person, same words, same request. Different label on the shirt, different answer. Status markers don't make people like you more. They make people stop questioning you. And that is the difference between a man who has to prove himself in every room and a man who is simply assumed. One of them spends his energy on the door. The other spends it on the business behind the door. So while every hunter on that hill was scanning the crowd for a Birmingham gangster, a gentleman in a grey morning coat stood by the rail, watched the third race, and gave the signal. By the time the horses came round the final turn, my men had walked into every one of that Londoner's betting pitches on the course and taken the licenses off him. He lost a business built over 20 years in about 11 minutes. And he never saw the man who took it, because the man who took it was standing 40 feet away in a coat he approved of, holding a glass of his champagne. Small men dress to be noticed, dangerous men dress to be believed. That was the third dimension of power, the armor. A coat, a pair of shoes, and a cap in an inside pocket, worth more that afternoon than every gun my family owned. I walked onto Epsom Downs as a man they'd have turned away at the rope. I walked off it, owning the racecourse. But understand the limit of what I've given you today. Clothes get you through the door and buy you the benefit of the doubt on the other side. They do not get you the signature. They will never get you the loyalty. Because the men in that enclosure weren't dangerous for what they wore. They were dangerous because they knew how to make other men want what they wanted and believe it had been their own idea all along. Next up, part 4 of my masterclass, how I move people without them ever noticing they were moved. The full masterclass is in the playlist below. Watch it in order. It's built that way for a reason. And when the world makes you feel small again, come back here. This channel is where legends are studied, so men like you can become one.